Welcome everybody to Drum Education Live, episode 78. And today we have Vicky Oni on with us.
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here. And I wanted to ask you, when did you get into drumming? How old were you? How did it enter your life?
So, I got my first drum kit, I think on my 12th birthday, and that was after having just tried to play drums in school during a music lesson, and I just knew how to play a basic beat. And I was like, I don't know how I knew that, but I just knew it. I don't know if I've heard other drummers have like similar stories like that. I don't know if it's the same with you too.
No.
So so then I got a drum kit for my 12th birthday, which was something that I was so happy to get it, but then I don't know why, but I was too scared to start playing it. So it was just collecting dust in our basement, and maybe it was because I didn't have a drum teacher. I didn't really know what to do with this thing that was sitting there. It was really, really intimidating for me. So when I was 14, me and my friend started an all-female punk band in my hometown, and we were all sort of like swapping instruments. So I had a little bash on the drums for some of the songs that we were doing, but it was like very, very, very basic stuff. So I don't really consider me starting to play the drums until I was 19, because I had a drum kit, but it was only collecting dust, and I didn't really play until I was 19. But when I really got into it was after I went to South America. So when I had finished school, I went backpacking to South America for 6 months with two of my best friends. And that's where I really fell in love with rhythms, with music. It was everywhere. It was so different from Finnish culture, where you're either a musician or you're not a musician. And if you're not a musician, you don't do music. You know, it was just like, it's really fascinating to see how that was just a part of everyday life there. So when I came back from that trip, I decided that I wanted to go to a music school that was close to my hometown in Finland, where you actually lived in the school you were there for a year, and you had a room in the school, and you had access to their studios 24/7, and it was all about studying pop and rock music. Because when I was a kid, I was studying classical piano, but when I became a teenager, I was like, I'm not listening to classical music, I'm not getting anything out of this, so I stopped. But I sort of had like the music background, music theory. I knew some of that already. But I wanted to study pop and rock music because that's what I was listening to. And I'm so glad I went to that school, because I did have a place in a university in Finland to study political history. And I thought that was going to be my path in life.
That is wild. What?
So I thought I was just taking another gap year, because I had already taken one gap year going traveling. So I was like, I'm just going to postpone these studies one more year, because you could postpone it for 2 years before you actually accepted the studies. But that was it. When I went to that music school and I started to learn about pop and rock music, I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. But at first I didn't have drums I didn't study drums at all. I had piano and vocals. They were the instruments I was studying. But then 6 months into the course, I started to take drums just as a side instrument. And I had an amazing drum teacher who was really, really inspiring, and encouraging. So I stayed in the school for another year, and then I chose drums as my main instrument the second year. And it was like a few months into that year that I decided, nah, you know what? This is what I want to do for a living. I want to learn everything about drumming and drums. I'm obsessed. So then I started to look for music schools where I could be obsessed about drumming, because there wasn't really anything in Finland that felt that appealing to me, because they are so focused on academia, and a lot of their studies is connected to becoming a music teacher. And I just wanted to learn about the instrument and to see how you can be a session drummer. I was more interested in that vein, and I found a school in London called Drum Tech, which is now under the BIMM umbrella. And that just sounded perfect because it was just about learning literally every aspect of drumming there.
Yeah.
So I flew to London. I did an audition. I got into the school just about, because at that point I think I had been playing drums for about 9 months. So I was really quite like new to a lot of it. I didn't know how to set up a drum kit at that point, for example, but I did get into the school for their diploma year. So I then moved to London. That's now 12 years ago. I did the diploma there, worked really hard because I was so scared when I started. I was like, when are they going to realize that I'm a fraud? I can't really play. I only just started doing this thing. Oh my God, what am I doing here? But in some way, looking back, I think that in some weird way worked to my advantage, because I was so focused with my practice. I wish I would be that focused today. I'm not. Because I
don't believe that.
I had to be back then. And I was actually, I even by the end of that diploma year, I got like the school's top overall drummer award, which I couldn't believe, because I was like, I'm just faking all of this. I don't even know what I'm doing. But something must have worked and I must have done something right. And then you could actually skip the first year of the degree and jump straight onto the second year of the degree if your marks were above 60. So that's what I ended up doing. So I was in the school for 3 years in total. So my diploma year essentially kind of turned into like a first year of a degree instead.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's that. Long answer, sorry.
No worries.
We like long answers.
Yeah.
You started with classical piano, and how does that fit in your life as a drummer now?
Oh, it's really come back actually. For a long time, I didn't do anything that had to do with piano. From the moment I decided that I wanted to become a drummer, I only focused on the drums. And also when I was studying, I felt like I had so many like virtuoso keys players around me that I was like, well, I can't do that, because at that point I hadn't been playing piano since I was about 12. But the music theory and the fingers, because I was studying classical piano as well, it's still in the fingers somehow, which I realized about 4 or 5 years ago. I was living in a place where we had an upright piano, and I started to feel very drawn to it. And now I'm loving it. I'm playing piano every morning actually now. And I find that it's probably my favorite tool when it comes to songwriting, because that's the aspect that I've always missed with drums, that it's all rhythm, really. We can think about it melodically, but we don't have pitch and we don't have harmony like we have with other instruments, right? And I think the piano is such a cool combination, because you got the bass lines, you got the harmony, you got the melody, and all of that is rhythm depending on how you play it. So I love the piano.
Yeah, the piano, for some people consider the piano a percussion instrument. So
yeah, I would definitely do that. I use it as that, because my harmony, my knowledge in harmony and melody is not great, because I haven't studied that very much. So I very much use it as a rhythmic instrument.
Cool.
Sure.
Who was the first drummer you got into?
Stuart Copeland.
Yeah.
I was just it was I think I had probably already started in tech at that point. Yeah, but that was the first drummer that I can remember that I was really blown away by. It was when I properly started to learn to listen to drum parts, because that took a while, because before that it was all just music, but I didn't actually dissect, well, what is the drummer doing, and analyze it until I properly started to study drums myself. And he was definitely someone that was like, oh my God, what he's doing is so cool. He's just flipping things on its head and drawing influences from all these, from reggae, from all these different styles, but he's making it his own, which is so cool, just by displacing the beat and put the kick on one hand instead of one and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Love him too.
You can continue, Kieran.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to know, when you came to the UK, you're a drum tech. When was your first like proper drumming job? When did that come?
Job, as in getting paid, was probably not until after I had graduated. I was playing in loads of bands when I was studying, because I just wanted to learn as much as possible about drumming, and I knew that the best way to do that is to just join as many bands as I can, playing different styles. So I think I was in probably about 10 bands or something like that. But that was small gigs around London. That's how I got to know London as well, because you would just rock up in any odd place somewhere in London in a tiny little venue, dragging all of your breakables all over town on the tube. You know about that, I guess. Yeah, we've all been there.
We've all been there.
I'm so glad for that. Like that, it's almost like you need to. That was exciting, you know. That was really exciting at the time. But then the first big gig that comes to my mind was about a year after I had graduated, and that was when I got a gig to play with Hans Zimmer at Hammersmith Apollo for two sold out nights, and he called it Hans Zimmer and Friends, and that was the first time that he put together like a full live concert with his music, because it's such a complex thing to do, because his compositions are just massive, and we were 60 musicians on stage for that.
Wow. How did that come about?
So I was taking drum lessons with Mike Dolbeer at the time. I'm now taking drum lessons with him again. I've had many years.
Cool.
I'm back on the lessons now and I'm loving it. But I was taking drum lessons with him, and he had organized the 1,000 drummers that performed for the Olympics. I think it was the closing ceremony. And Hans Zimmer saw that, and he was like, who's written this music? Like, this is amazing. Who's organized this? And he found out that it was Mike. So he got in touch with Mike, and he said that he told him that he's putting together a show in London, and that he's looking for musicians to join, and drummers specifically, to join the show. And then Mike put my name forward, and I was very, very lucky to get the job.
Cool.
Amazing. Do you were you nervous?
I was really nervous before rehearsal started, I remember, because I didn't know who was going to be there, what it was going to be like, what is it like to be a part of a big production like that.
Yeah.
But everyone was so lovely, and it was with 5 other female drummers, which are all now good friends of mine, and it just straight away when we got together and actually started working, it just felt like so cool, but really like safe space in some ways as well. And then by the time we actually got to perform, I was just loving it. I was just too excited to be nervous, I think. I was just like, this is so cool. This is so amazing. So I can't really remember being nervous, just very, very excited.
And how much rehearsal was involved for that? Like too much, not enough?
Mm, if yeah, it did feel like enough. I can't remember exactly how much we rehearsed, but I think we started rehearsing a couple of weeks before the shows. But it wasn't, maybe we had like 4 or 5 rehearsals,
And did you
something
get the
like,
music ahead of time, or did you learn the
yeah,
music? Okay.
yeah. But one of the big challenges there was that we had to memorize all of it. We were only allowed to have like one A4 on stage, and some of his compositions are like 20 minutes long, you know, and there's loads of odd time signatures and quick changes. So it was really like, yeah, but I like those kind of challenges where you just have to like dive in, and I just got obsessed with it before the rehearsal started, and I was just practicing basically as much as I could. If I was on the tube, I was like trying to memorize some little sequences. and then I made this like cheat sheet with the one pager that we were allowed to have on stage, with just like 2 hours on one A4 basically, with just these like little notes that could like help with all these little tiny sections throughout the set.
Wow. That's amazing. I always find it fascinating when someone's got a new job or a new opportunity, how they deal with like nerves and pressure and that thing, and it's turning it. I think you've got a really lovely way about you that you get excited and you get really focused in. And I think that's such a lesson, isn't it? Like, right, what can I control? I can control my response, and I'm going to just get excited and I'm just going to go all in rather than panic.
And I think the only way that I can get to that place, and that's why I was so nervous before the rehearsal started. I was nervous when I didn't know the material yet. And I think the only thing that we can really control is how well we know our part. The rest we can't control, but that gives us just calm, I guess, you know, when we're like, okay, well, I've done what I can here now. But until I did a workshop in London last week, and I was so nervous. I was so nervous the days before because I didn't know the material that I was performing yet. Because I was like, it just took me longer than I thought it would, and all these things. And it wasn't until I knew it. And when I knew it, all the nerves just went doom, and I wasn't nervous at all. But until I get to that point, that's when I'm mad nervous, actually.
I relate.
So the nerves come with the unknown.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Good.
so.
I want to shift to Ableton and your expertise in that. How did that come about?
Let's pretend there are other people like that are like me, cavemen, who have no idea what that is. So if she could explain.
Yeah, so Ableton is a digital audio workstation where almost anything is possible. You can record music into it, you can create music in it, you can produce music, mix it, master it. And what makes Ableton unique from other digital audio workstations like Logic or Pro Tools or Cubase is that it's such an incredible tool when it comes to live performance and when it comes to creating massive live shows. It's probably the most common tool used for big tours, because you can program all the all the sound changes for everybody on stage, all the lights, all the visuals, everything can happen inside of Ableton. So I think it's like a super, super cool creative tool and live performance tool as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's
So
what Ableton is. And
thank you
then
very
to
much.
answer,
I feel a little bit less into the cave. So going back to Kira's question.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I first got introduced to Ableton when I was in an originals project. I think this was maybe around 2015. It was a duo project, and the guy I was doing the project with, he said, let's use Ableton for this. So we started to program we wrote all the music in Ableton, and then we programmed, or he programmed our whole live show in there, where there was like automated changes of sounds and all these things that makes it easy when you're just two people on stage to make it sound big, and for you not to have to like press 1,000 buttons, because he was basically filling the space for both bass player, keys player, and vocalist, and he had all these cool changes for vocal effects and synth sounds and bass sounds all going on at the same time. So I was just, at that point, I had no idea how he was programming any of this stuff, but I saw the possibilities at this point, and I was like, that is mad cool. Wow, how can you do all of this? Wow. And Ableton has this, it has two different windows. One window is called the arrangement view, which works more as a traditional digital audio workstation in a linear way, where you start to record your music on the left and everything gets recorded to the right. But then it has another window called session view, where it's not linear, it's loop based. So you have different clips that you record, different loops that you record, and then you can combine those loops in any way you want. And that just frees up your mind when you're in the creative process of trying to come up with different ideas. It's a little bit like Lego. You're just testing out different pieces together and see how well they fit together. So I then started to use Ableton on a very basic level initially as a songwriting tool, doing the Lego, putting the pieces together. And then I just started to get more and more into it. And when I really properly started to get into it was when an electronic music producer, her name is Rachel K. Collier. She's a big YouTuber as well. And she's amazing at Ableton. And she got in touch with me and asked if I wanted to be her drummer for her live show. And she uses Ableton in very advanced ways, live looping herself on stage. So just being in her band, seeing what she was doing with Ableton, I was like, oh my God, this is next level. I want to learn how to do all of this stuff. So then I started to like proper study it, just myself, just watching YouTube videos. And she's also done a course in how to use Ableton that I've watched. And I've done loads of performances, and I've written an album with her as well. And I learned loads just being in the room, actually creating with her about creative ways you can use the platform. So that's really my background into Ableton, and why I think it's such an important tool for drummers specifically actually today is that it's so common that drummers control the backing tracks, control the music, and the way you can do that with Ableton, the options are amazing. It's so much more than just starting a track and then once it's going, and that's it. And if the singer comes in the wrong place, we're screwed, there's nothing we can do. With Ableton, there's all sorts of things you can do to create a safety net around these situations where you can actually create a really cool, creative live performance together with your band. So to know these tools, is amazing for a creative outlet live, I think.
Cool.
Is it weird for you now? Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead.
I feel like you so often are using Ableton and you're doing your live loops and things like that. Is it weird for you now if you're in the situation where there's nothing, like it's just a band, no click, things like that? Would that be weird for you now, or are you not phased?
Oh, I think it's so nice, actually. Because what comes with all of that is a lot of tech, in a sense, that is like, so many cables that you need to make sure that all the routing is correct and all of this and that, you know. So it's like, it's the setup for live looping is quite extensive in some ways. So when you can just rock up and just groove, oh, it's so easy. But then on the other hand, it's like, I love this challenge. I think, you know, as drummers, we're multitasking. That's what we do. I think that's what we get kicks out of, to be able to do one thing with the right hand, one thing with the left hand, and so on. And the live looping is like an extreme version of that in some way, because we need to memorize so many more moves. So I do get kicks out of it, and I do love it. But it's definitely nice to also just play. Yeah. But one thing I have noticed though is that I am so used to working with a click nowadays that sometimes when I'm not working with a click, I'm like, ooh, am I in time? Something is missing. So and that's not good. That's not good. And I've clocked that with myself, and I'm like, oh no, now it's gone the other way. I remember when the click used to be my enemy. Now it's become too good of a friend of mine, you know.
That's it. Now it's like, oh no, crap! I actually have to know what the tempo is. Oh shit! Let me get my click out.
I have a question about the future. How do you see the role of drummers in it? Because it changed so much, and I'm gonna be upfront with it before anybody says I'm a dinosaur. So you know, I started playing when there was not even personal computers. Um, so it changed so much because with uh, it started changing when you had the some sort of sequencer, and then you were the drummer, and because you're sitting, you could press play and stop, you know, so that the drummer became the guy who played. But now with these new tools, it's so much more than that. uh, how do you see the, if you have any vision of the future of drumming with all this technology? Because we play a very, let's say, primitive instrument, isn't it? It's wood and metal, and you hit it to produce a sound.
Mm-hmm. I can see a few different futures. And I think as a session musician, as a session drummer, it is probably more and more important that you have skills. I think you get work more easily if you can incorporate electronic elements into your performance. Also, because so much of the drums that we hear on music today is all electronic drums, and the sound of the drums on the recording is actually such a huge part of the whole production, of the whole sound of the song. So if we can provide an accurate reproduction of that live, then we're probably more hireable than someone who can't. So I think being able to incorporate hybrid drumming using triggers or using electronics when necessary, and if you can use a platform like Ableton, and you can program these drum sounds to change throughout a performance and stuff like that, I think it's a massive bonus. It's something that I personally really love and think is really fun. However, I do really hope that, and I also think that acoustic drums will never disappear. You know, like maybe all this technology will eventually implode on itself, you know, and then our ears are just gonna crave like organic music, real music. I never think, for example, in jazz, we're never gonna like not have acoustic drums in jazz music, and some other genres as well. So I think it's a little bit genre related as well. And who knows, maybe in 20 years time is like, well, we all, you know, what's in is like the raw acoustic sounds again. This weekend I went to see Royal Blood play at Swansea Arena. It's a brand new arena and the sound is amazing and the whole arena is so cool. And it's just two of them, drums and bass or guitar. He keeps swapping, but he has like these loads of effects. And it was just so good. It was so good to just hear that on stage. There was a little bit of keyboard in some of the songs, but it was very stripped back. And I realized at that point how we're so used to hearing all these like perfect productions because we want it to sound exactly like the recording. But there's something that we're losing in that process as well live, I think.
Cool.
I'm so happy to hear that. Like, yeah, especially with a band so big as them. I'm pleased that they're doing it that way and it's not so like polished. Let's have it real. Let's
exactly
rock.
And it's like and it does feel a little bit like rock and roll is dead in many areas, but I don't think it can ever really die, because when you do have an experience like that, it's just, I mean, we need that in our lives, you know.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I feel like as drummers, there's so many things to learn, like especially with all this tech stuff. But if we're going to talk about like drumming education, if you could teach a drummer just one thing, or the most important, if you had to, life or death, what would it be? What do you think is the most important thing?
I think it's timing. I think it's timing and groove. But if you don't have a good sense of time, if you can't work with them, you don't necessarily have to work with a metronome, but I think in some ways you do, at least to build up your internal clock. If you don't have that, if you can't provide that as a drummer, then I always say to my students that I look at a band as like as a building, and the drummer is the foundation, the base, the basement, and it doesn't matter how nice the fourth floor looks like if that's the guitar player and they are doing some really cool stuff, if you don't have a solid foundation that everything else is built upon, and that is the drummer's role. So if you can't provide that, then it doesn't matter if you can do really flashy stuff on top, you know, you need to have good time. Yeah.
There's that old saying, your band is only as good as your drummer.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So true though.
What's the hardest lesson that you've learnt drumming wise?
I can't think of a specifically drum related one straight away, but one that definitely comes to my mind is to like not say yes to gigs that are too big for your shoes, which I had to learn the hard way. And this was when I was running vegetable orchestra, electric vegetable orchestra, and we performed at Glastonbury, and I did an interview for Chris Evans, and it ended up on BBC News, where we had carrots and all sorts of different vegetables that we were playing with. And then Chris said, hey, come and play at my festival. He has a big festival called Car Fest, which is about music and cars, both in the north and the south. So we were invited to perform there. And I thought, oh my God, this is great. We're going to take the vegetable orchestra to the next level. So I put triggers on pumpkins and butternut squash and melons, and created this like really complex live looping performance with vegetables. This was my early days of using Ableton. I was not nearly as experienced as I am today. And then we turn up, and we realize that there is no sound check time allocated for us, and we really need a sound check because it's very complex what we're doing, and I'm realizing that this is more just like a novelty act between two big artists, but there's about 15,000 people in the audience. So then we have like, we need to, in order for me to like test stuff, we need to have power. We don't get power until they basically roll us on and they say, you're on. And I was like, what do you mean we're on? Like, we haven't plugged anything in. And they're like, what do you want? What? It was horrible. And then I said, we can't do anything. And there's like a sea of people. And then they put on a song. It's 3 minutes long, and they are like, okay, you got 3 minutes to sort this out. And they are like really pissed off. So there I am, like, and then I'm panicking at this point. Just I can't get anything working. It's like broad sunlight as well, which is a nightmare when it comes to looping, because you can't see the controller, you can't see what to push. And then the one of my friends who is playing the drums, the triggers on the melons, because we all had like different rolls that we were doing with the vegetables, she plugs her headphones into the wrong output, so she doesn't hear the click, but we're looping stuff. So she starts to play in the completely wrong time, and I just about get everything to work when the song is fading out. And at that point, I'm already just like absolutely panicking. And then you have to try to like entertain and perform and loop when everything is out of time. Somehow I got through that performance, but after that, I was like, okay, Vicky, that was a big lesson. Like, just ask enough questions before a gig if you have something technically complex, so to make sure you have a sound check and you have all these things that you need, or then don't say yes to something that you're not ready for. That was my lesson from that.
A good lesson. Very good.
Yeah,
lesson.
that's amazing. Well done for doing it. Oh my God.
Well done.
But you got through it. You didn't run away.
Kind of, yeah.
You didn't run away.
Well, there's no way to run away.
There's no way to run away, no.
She would have to run through 15,000 people. How far would she go?
Yeah, but that's the last gig I've done with my vegetable orchestra. I don't think I'm ever going to do it.
Oh, no. Oh, I was wondering about that today before this. I was like, oh, yeah. Good times. Okay, so you have a single out.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. How did it come about? How long did it take for you to record? Was the releasing process everything that you thought it would be? Let us know. Tell us everything.
Yes. So I have been writing songs for a few years now, and I've even recorded some of them in professional recording studios and all sorts of things, and I've never officially released anything. And maybe I think I've had all sorts of different excuses for why I haven't, but I think the real reason is that I've probably just been too scared to do it. And this song I wrote in January. So it's a very new song. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to release it because I'm tired of procrastinating out of fear. That's like my 2022 resolution. It's like, fear is not going to hold me back in any decisions that I make this year. So that was like one of the first ones. And I was in Finland when I wrote the song. It was really snowy and really dark. I wrote it late one evening, and it came from a necessity in a sense that I had booked a videographer to go out on the frozen sea to film a live looping video a week later, and I had no idea what I was going to do. It's like, we got that booked, it's going to look really cool, but what am I going to perform? I don't know. And then I was inspired by, I started then thinking about, okay, so we're going to be out on the frozen sea. It's cold as ice. And then I started thinking about what is cold as ice. And at that point, I was just at the very end of a divorce from a relationship that had been very unhealthy, and I had completely lost myself in that relationship. And then this whole song, the concept, everything just came to me, and it just, the whole, I think I wrote the whole song in a couple of hours or maybe something like that when it came. And it's about that relationship, and it's something that's so powerful about being able to use music as a channel for healing in that way. And I think that's what then also in some ways fueled me thinking, well, this is a part of this process that I'm going through right now in life, so let's just go through with it and actually release it. And that's almost like me doing like a full circle of me moving on from that stuff that happened in my life back then. And I'm really happy I've done it, and this has really inspired me now to do more.
Cool.
And I didn't really have any expectations on this release. My only expectation from myself was to actually follow through with it and get it out there. And now I've been very like happily surprised that it's actually, I think it's almost 1,000 listens now on Spotify, and it got almost 800 listens after a couple of days of being up there. And now it's gonna get on like a playlist on a Finnish radio station and stuff like that. So it's like it's some little things, because I didn't have any expectations. All of it is like a bonus, I guess.
Excellent.
Oh, congrats. It's great. Hopefully see and hear more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are planning a dinner party and you can invite 3 musicians, dead or alive. Who are they?
Oh my gosh. I always find anything where you have to pick and choose. So hard. Who would I choose?
Apart from me and Felipe, obviously.
Obviously. That's the first thing that came to her mind.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I was obsessed with Prince a few years ago. And I think it would be amazing to sit down and have a chat with him and pick his brain. So that would probably be one person that would make it to the list. That would be insane if that would ever, well, that would never happen, but in dream world. And then, there's so many names that are like floating through my head that would be cool. Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Would be super cool as well. And maybe I have to say Sheila E., because she's always been, I think, overall, what she's doing, she's probably my biggest inspiration, because she's a drummer, she's a percussion player, she's a songwriter, she's an artist, and an educator, everything she does, and a huge role model as well. So yeah, that's probably my 3. That would be quite a fun dinner party.
Well, 2 of them is quite possible.
Yeah. Okay, you say that. Okay, I hope so.
Well, they're alive.
Yeah. Sort it out.
Prince will have to wait a little bit till we'll go to the equivalent for musicians to Valhalla or something.
And Sheila, you can probably tell me loads of good Prince stories anyway, so I'll get some of that through her.
Yeah. Okay.
Completely.
Smart thinking.
Okay, well, we're out of time. Thank you, Vicky, so much.
Thank you very much.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Thank you for
Pleasure.
saying yes.